on inflation, you painted a pretty bleak picture of the global economy, and we know a lot of those inflation pressures are coming from the global economy. How confident are you in Treasury's prediction of 7.75% inflation in December? Can you rule out that going to double digits like it has in the US? And I know some of these figures are from the June quarter, so they don't necessarily take into account interest rate hikes here in Australia. But are you, I guess, disappointed or worried that households are still spending what they're spending?
Well, first of all, on the robustness or otherwise of the forecast, it's a notoriously difficult task, and especially so when we've got this global volatility that we've got. I think it speaks volumes about the situation that we're in. When the Americans get an inflation figure with an 8 in front of it, it's welcomed as good news because it was better than what was forecast for that particular set of data. So it's a volatile time. Forecasting is notoriously difficult, but that's the best assessment that Treasury has most recently given us about the peak in inflation. There's a lot that can change. And inflation has a number of sources, global and domestic. Energy is a big part of the story, of course, but these supply chain pressures too. And so that remains our expectation. When it comes to the behaviour of households, it's not for me to tell people how to manage their own household budgets. The Independent Reserve Bank has made it clear that they see a role for themselves in managing that demand in the economy. And our job is not to second guess that, and nor is it to make the job of the Independent Reserve Bank harder. And so what we are trying to do is provide cost of living relief in the most responsible way that we can, and in a way that delivers another economic dividend. Making childcare cheaper delivers a massive economic dividend. And making medicines cheaper delivers a massive dividend when it comes to health costs. Easing the cost of TAFE in some areas is obviously a cost of living measure. Making electric vehicles cheaper with the tax cut that we hope to pass through the Parliament. Getting wages moving again. These are the things that we can responsibly do to help Australians through a very tough period without interfering with the work that the Reserve Bank does independently. Rachel, thank you.
Thanks, Treasurer. As you said, the growth was driven by household spending, and people were spending more on things like travel, clothing, dining out. Given that, and given, as you mentioned as well, the budget constraints you've got, how much cost of living assistance do Australians really need at this point?
Well, the task in providing responsible cost of living support is to make sure that you can do it in a way that doesn't put extra pressure on the Reserve Bank and risk being counterproductive. And so the cost of living relief that you will see in the October budget, childcare, medicines, electric vehicles, TAFE fees, and our efforts to get wages moving again in a sustainable way, strongly but sustainably, are all about easing the cost of living pressures on Australians, dealing with some of the constraints that are in our economy, which are preventing the economy from growing at a greater capacity, and to do that in a way where we get maximum value for money in the budget. As I said before, budgets are always about competing priorities. Every single budget is about that. It just so happens that there is a particularly complex combination of challenges that we confront right now. We'll do the right and responsible thing. There will be cost of living relief for Australians in the budget, but it will be delivered in a way that doesn't make the task of the Independent Reserve Bank harder.